Well, first of all, I'd apologise on behalf of John McDonnell. He was going to give me a lift down to Brighton for this meeting, and just as I was waiting for him to pick me up, I had a phone call saying he wasn't well. So I got to Victoria and caught the first train I could find, but I'm afraid I have let it down a bit. And it's a very important period for all of us, and particularly for members of the Labour Representation Committee, because we are aiming to reproduce the process by which the Labour Party itself came into existence. In the end of the 19th century, most working men had the vote. Women didn't have the vote, of course, and the Labour Party decided that it needed to be represented in Parliament along with capital, because if you really look at the political divisions in Britain, it isn't so much Labour and Conservative, it's Labour and capital. And the Tory party has always represented the interests of those who own the country, and when they're in power, you can see what they do. They cut benefits, they cut taxation on the very wealthy, they try and restrict the rights of working people, and Labour is there, was set up to represent these interests of working people and see that they were reflected. And in the end, it did give us the welfare state, the National Health Service, and all the things we're most proud of. And that was a product of democracy operating. But now we're in a situation with an election coming up, and when a lot of people look at the situation we're in, they're very depressed. And when people get frightened and depressed, it leads to a swing to the right. It's a strange factor, but when people feel there's nothing they can do, they very often look for some smart party that will have an easy answer, and that's what UKIP is about, that's what the EDL is about, that's what the BNP is about, and that's what Hitler was about in the 1930s in Germany. And so our big problem is to rebuild confidence that we can do something. And I think that is a very important question we ought to consider, because although we've got massive problems of unemployment, we've got the world now run by capital, not by democratic people. We've got this threat of nuclear weapons and all the rest of it. Consider that against the problems that we faced in the past, and you realise that they are, difficult as they are, they're really no harder than the problem of getting votes for men, votes for women, and doing the things that led to the foundation of the Labour Party. And so I find that I get great confidence from looking back on history, because I realise what a huge struggle it must have been to get rid of slavery, to get votes for people, to get to join trade unions. All these things were massive tasks, and they were achieved by determined people who just were not put off by the problems that they faced when they considered how to deal with it. And so I think we ought to keep that in mind. And I'm an optimist, because I don't believe for a moment that everything will work out all right in the end, whatever we do. But I do believe if we put an effort in to improve things, we can succeed. And that is the optimism that goes with making the effort. And that's what we have to do now. Now, having said all that, we look at the situation that we actually face, and it's become so clear that we are up against the forces of wealth. And Mrs. Thatcher's funeral was a reminder of the welcome that the media gave to her when she was there, because her object was to crush Labour and establish capital in power on a permanent basis. And now she died, but Cameron's doing a similar thing, and we have to be aware of that. And we are up against the power of capital, and we have to change it. And that can only be done if Labour works together. Now, there are some people in the Labour Party who are so discouraged by what happens. They say we'll always be let down, all parties are the same. And that is a way of discouraging people at the very moment when we need encouragement. And I think it's very important we don't allow that discouragement to get a grip, because it will put people off and encourage them to join UKIP and all the rest of it. And the thing about the Labour Representation Committee is it is not a committee to set up a new political party better than the Labour Party. It works within the Labour Party, and it makes use of the democracy we have in the Labour Party to make the progress that we've made. And we now face this election coming up, and it's going to be a very important election. All elections are important, but if we were to be defeated this time, then there would be another 5 years of the wealthy running the country to suit their own interests. And a lot of people's lives would be badly affected by that. There'd be unemployment, cuts in benefits, cuts in services. And we're seeing the beginning of that now, and we know what would happen if it became semi-permanent. So that's our job, is to inform people of what's happening, to explain why it's happening, and then to come up with positive proposals designed to meet the problems we've discussed. You know what they say: educate, agitate, and organise. That's what the Labour Party is about: informing people, agitating for justice, and organising to bring it about. So that's really the only contribution I think I can usefully make. I'm 88 now, and I've seen quite a lot of things in my life. And I must admit, as I get older, I realise what massive achievements we have to our credit. And I realise how important it is that we make the same effort now. So thank you for listening, and if you've got questions, I'll try and answer them. But I'm not sure I'll be able to give everyone the answer they want. Listen very carefully to what's been said.